Hello, this is Robert Kiyosaki, and this is Rich Dad Advisor and close friend Tom Wheelwright. He's my expert on taxes. And today we're doing this program for Rich Dad's Coaching. And it's purely an educational and informative program because, as you guys know, a lot of people during booms and busts, when it's booming, all the idiots get out there and they start buying stocks or they start buying real estate, and they don't know anything. And so the reason Rich Dad really is a proponent and an advocate of financial education doesn't mean rushing out there and buying something because the prices are going up. That's really, really stupid. And it's really stupid to just flip a property or flip a stock just because you're hoping to get rich, because that's when you're going to lose. So today it's a very important program because we're going to be talking about how taxes affect real estate. Because when I invest in real estate, I'm investing for more than just the property. So I'm investing primarily for cash flow versus capital gains. And a person investing in real estate or stock for capital gains, we hope the price goes up.
Right.
And I don't really care. I mean, I do, but I don't really care if the price goes up. I want to know about cash flow. And one of the things that affects cash flow is taxes. So if you're just buying a property, I've really got to know what the tax consequences is when I have income come in, how much of that income can I shelter from
taxes?
Right. And so the other part of this whole thing is you don't buy real estate for taxes. You don't do that stuff. Oh, I'm getting a tax break. That's really stupid. People say I'm putting money in a 401k because I got a tax break. That's really stupid. You know what I mean? The other thing I invest in real estate for is asset protection, and we just had that program with Garrett Sutton because you have to have an attorney to cover your assets. So real estate is more than just real estate, taxes, asset protection, and we have Ken McElroy on how to use debt to invest in real estate. So real estate is very, very good investment, but you have to have financial education. Number one, it provides you income. Number two, taxes, because it reduces the expenses. You get more income coming in. Three is asset protection, and four is debt. You use other people's money. So say that again: taxes, asset protection, income, and whatever it was.
Debt.
Anyway, debt. Gotta use debt. So we don't just go out and buy real estate, right?
No, that's right. And like you say, I mean, you certainly don't do it for tax purposes. No. There's some great tax consequences, which we'll talk about during this segment. And there are huge tax benefits if you know what you're doing and if you plan right. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can get killed as much in real estate as you can in any other type of investment.
And for those who may have read my books, in 1997, Rich Dad Poor Dad came out, and specifically I said that your house is not an asset. And yet people say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, the book was turned down by publishers all over the U.S. It said, your house is an asset. And you see, a lot of times very educated people, like editors, like my poor dad, they don't know jack. So that's why also you got to be very careful who gives you advice. Because when I said your house is not an asset in 1997, 2007, 10 years later, whole real estate market crashed because houses are not assets. Real estate's not assets. It can shift from asset to liability that quickly. Is that correct?
No question. In fact, the tax law kind of bears this out, because if you look at the tax law gives benefits to true assets. So if you own an asset, you get some shelter from your cash flow, et cetera, and you get some tax benefits. You don't get the same tax benefits on your home. You know, we think of a home as getting great tax benefits, but you really don't. You get to deduct the mortgage interest and the taxes, so what? But you don't get the big tax benefits, the tax benefit that we're going to talk about later, which is depreciation. You don't get that on your personal residence that you get on your investing assets.
And what Tom has really taught me, being a tax advisor, can you give a little bit of your background, you know, what qualifies
Sure.
you to give an idiot like me advice, something like this? So.
Well, I actually have a resume that includes a Master's of Tax from the University of Texas. It includes 8 years with the Big Four, Ernst & Young and Price Waterhouse, as well as 4 years as the in-house tax advisor for a Fortune 500 company, besides the last 20 years with my own firm that we've built to one of the largest firms in Arizona.
So the point here of this is when I met Tom, you know, it's like kindred spirits, like when I met Kenny, you know, because Kenny McElroy, who is my real estate partner, and Tom and Garrett, I mean, I couldn't do what I do without the three of you. Is that correct?
Oh, no question. I mean, it takes a team to build an empire.
So if you understand that, you don't just go out there and flip a house. That's really stupid. I mean, it's very stupid. Because what happens when you flip a house? Is it good for taxes?
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, you have the highest tax rate possible when you just go out and flip a house. And most people don't realize just how bad that tax rate is. It could be as high as 60% in California.
Yeah. So I sit there and I watch TV and they have flipped this house, and then they have these guys come on television and say, let me tell you how to flip this house. You know, I want to just flip them off is the whole thing, you know, because I'm going, holy mackerel, you've got to be kidding me. That is really bad advice. It's risky advice, it's stupid advice, and makes no sense tax-wise, right?
There's no question. And then if you add debt in it, it makes it even more risky when you do flipping the house, as opposed to when you're buying investment property. You get the tax benefits and you get to use debt the right way.
Yeah. And the most stupid thing, this is in stocks and real estate or anything, any investment, they say, oh, I'm buying this property because the price is going to go up. That's called gambling. I mean, what control
That's right.
do you have over the price of real estate going up, which is, again, capital gains, not cash flow. My game is called cash flow, not capital gains. So a lot of times people have a gambler's mentality versus a well-educated or a sophisticated mentality when it comes to anything, any investment, stocks, bonds, real estate, or whatever you invest in. So that's why the Rich Dad Company is very dedicated to financial education. That's why Tom has his own book, Rich Dad Advisor book. What's the title of your book?
Tax-free wealth.
And then we'll bring it up on the screen for you to look at. But if you want to, the reason you want to read Tax-Free Wealth, maybe not for yourself, but if you have a tax advisor like an accountant, make sure your accountant reads the book. Is that correct?
Well, in fact, it's for both, because it's written to be very simple so anybody can understand it, and it's written to teach you principles. It's about the context. Just like anything else we do at Rich Dad, the content's one thing, but if you can get the context, it'll completely change your life, completely change your point of view. People who read Tax-Free Wealth tell us all the time that they've completely shifted how they think about taxes, and then they do. They give it to their tax advisor, you know, and then their tax advisor typically says, yeah, that's how it works.
And this is the way that Tom shifted my context, my belief. If I could draw a quick drawing on here. Let's say this is a water glass here. The water glass is context. It's your beliefs, your philosophies, your core values, things like this. And then the water going in is content. And so what Tom has done a great job of doing for me was shifting my context. I already had the content, I already had some real estate experience. But when Tom shifted my point of view, and Kenny shifted my point of view, and Garrett Sutton shifted my point of view on legalities. So Kenny shifted on debt, Garrett Sutton on the legal side of it, and Tom on tax. My context was in. The content's all the same. It's still real estate. But because my context is better, I do better at real estate. Which is that true?
Well, no, that's exactly right. I mean, for example, one of the first things we talk about in tax-free wealth is that the tax law is merely a series of incentives for business owners and investors.
And that's the shift for me, is that what Tom talked to me about taxes, I wrote about this in my other book, which will show up here. It's called Why A Students Work for C Students and B Students Work for the Government, become bureaucrats. It's because what Tom says, the tax law really is an incentive program for us to be generous.
No, that's exactly
the more
right.
generous we are, the more tax breaks we have. Now, unfortunately, most people think the rich are greedy. It's really the poor middle class that are greedy. Because you may say, well, why do I have about 4,000 or 5,000 apartments? Why do I have that? Because I'm generous. You know, most people don't have one house or no house. You know, but because I provide housing, I get tax breaks.
Right. I mean, to put it another way, you know, if you're a consumer, which is the employee and the self-employed, that's the consumers. They don't get the tax breaks. But if you're a producer, where you're sharing, you're generous, then you get all the tax breaks that the tax law has there, and there are thousands of tax breaks for the producers.
Right. And the reason I invest in oil is I get tax breaks, right?
Right, because you're a producer.
But if I invest in oil stocks, do I get a tax break?
Nope, because then you're just consuming the dividends.
Right. So you understand, that's what Rich Dad is about, is giving you the education, both from Rich Dad's education side and Rich Dad's coaching. See, my Rich Dad was my coach, he wasn't my teacher. So that's really the fine differences here. So today we're going to be talking more about the context.
Right.
You know, the content is real estate, but it's more the context, how I look at real estate. So to give an example, just yesterday, Kim and I were up in the mountains, beautiful. Arizona has some of the most beautiful, beautiful mountains, you know, tall pine trees and all this stuff. And there's a ranch up there owned by a real estate guy. And during the heyday, back in the 80s and 90s in Arizona, he made fortunes and he bought himself this huge ranch. And on that huge ranch, he put 8 mansions. I mean, big houses. Now the problem is, he's gone, his kids are pretty much worthless. I mean, they don't want anything to do with real estate because they have this trust fund. And so this property just sits up there. And it's probably, if you evaluate it just on the value, I would say it's $10 million. They can't get $2 million for it.
Wow.
The reason is because nobody wants to run the thing. Each one of those mansions up there, and they're big houses. I mean, like 4,000 and 5,000 square foot houses that he had for his family. They're liabilities now, right? I mean,
No, yeah, sure.
it's costing them for it. The upkeep is killing them. You know, they're log houses, and log houses are massive upkeep. It's like, oh, you know, well, and so this guy was trying to tell me you should buy the property because the property is going to go up in value. You can pick it up for maybe $2 or $3 million. I said, why would I spend $2 or $3 million to lose money? He says, but the price is going to go up. I'm going, you got to be crazy. But that's where people are at, right?
No, there's no question. And one of the first things I learned from you, Robert, was that if you're buying something, you've got to have cash flow from it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't produce cash flow, it's going to be a liability.
But if I have no cash flow, do I get tax breaks?
No. Well, that's the crazy thing. So people think, well, I'm going to buy real estate because I'm going to get a tax break. You know, I'm going to get my mortgage interest. I'm going to get my tax. And I'm going, but you're spending money to get, I mean, so you're spending $1 to get 40 cents back in taxes. That makes no sense. But if you invest in an asset, you get the cash flow and the tax breaks.
And you use other people's money called debt.
That's right.
So that's what we're talking about here like this. The reason I'm going through the basics of this before we go into how you use taxes and offsetting with real estate and all that stuff, there really is a lot of education that goes in behind the scenes there. You have to understand. So like I said yesterday, most beautiful property, pine trees everywhere, massive houses. They have a trout pond with nobody's fishing there because the trout are big and fat. They're killing each other now, I'm afraid. They got horses, they got cattle. The trouble is, it's a liability. It's got no income to it. You know, why would I buy it? I said, well, again, the guy says, because the price is going to go up. I said, I don't think so. You know, I mean, if it went up, I'd have to make it go up. You know, I mean, I have to go be a rancher. Sure. I'm not a rancher.
I mean, you can turn anything. I mean, you can turn a liability into an asset, but it takes effort, it takes hard work, and it takes a lot of education to do that.
Well, a ranch is a business, right?
Exactly.
And if you have no ranching experience, like I don't,
Makes no
and
sense.
I can't fix log homes, which I don't want to do, or fix, you know, generators and all that stuff, it's a constant maintenance problem. So this guy was switched from the real estate salesman, a real estate broker, and the reason they're called brokers because they're broker than you are, he's trying to tell me, yeah, they're asking 6, you get it for 3. I said, I wouldn't pay $1 million for it. He goes, why? I said, I'm not a rancher. So it's not the real estate, it's all the context here, okay? So I understand that. So what Tom and I are talking about, we're talking about the tax breaks. Don't just rush out there and go buy real estate. That's stupid.
No, it's really stupid. So, I mean, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand what you're getting into. I mean, you have to understand, you know, create that plan or that strategy. We call it a strategy, where you've got a plan of action. You know what you're doing, but you're not going to know that until you get some education, which is the whole point of Rich Dad Education, Rich Dad Coaching, is so that you know before you do it. And that's the whole point of the game, right? You play Cash Flow 101 so that you learn what it's like to invest before you actually put any money into it. You've got to have the education first.
And going back to my education, like I said, my rich dad was my coach. He wasn't my teacher. So back in 1973, when I came back from Vietnam, I said, I want to listen to my rich dad, not my poor dad. My poor dad was unemployed and broke. And my poor dad wanted me to go back to school and get my master's degree. I said, I don't think so. But anyway, my rich dad said, well, you better get some education. So I went and took a real estate course. And it wasn't about real estate, it was about debt. Because real estate is the best thing for using debt, but you have to know how to use debt. So the course I took was 3 days long, cost me $385, which was, when you're making $600 a month, was 50% of my monthly income. So I had to cough hard on that one. At the end of the course, the real estate instructor was a great guy. He's a professional. You know, he was exactly what I wanted to be, not like the school teachers I had. I didn't like most of my school. Most of my school teachers were nice people, but I didn't want to be like them. This guy was a real estate investor, and I wanted to be a real estate investor, so it was nice. Easy to listen to him. So for 3 days, he goes on, he gives us the basics of it. Then he says, okay, now your education begins. I go, wait a minute, I just done this course. He says, no, education begins when you leave the course. I said, what's the education? He goes, there were 30 of us, let's say. He says, your job is to go out and look at 100 properties in 90 days. So I went to go to a real estate office. We had to sit there, go through their MLS of the listing services, look at all these properties, and out of maybe, let's say, 100 listings, we might find one that looked kind of good, that fit what he told us to look for. From there, we went out to the property, then we looked at the property, did the evaluation on the, you know, type of mortgage, the structure, the condition of the structure, the suitability, the way to walk the neighborhood. It was a lot of work. At the end of it, we come back and then we have to do 100 of those in 90 days. And naturally, as you know, 30 of us, 35, whatever it was, well, yeah, we'll do it. By the end of 90 days, there was 5 left. Everybody else dropped out. And that's when the difference between rich people and poor people. The poor people always quit. They get lazy. They want to do something easy. Right? Which that's true?
Oh, no question.
So at the end of the 90 days, I had looked at 100 properties. Out of that, I identified 3, and I bought 1. And the one property I bought was I still remember it very well. My first real estate investment was on the island of Maui, 1973. It was an oceanfront property, but what made it great was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo. Was great location, but the developer had gone bankrupt. So the developer was a bad real estate investor. And where do you make your money? From bad investments, right?
Right.
So this bad property, I walk up to the property, and every realtor broker says you can't find what you're looking for. Well, that's why they're broker than you are. They're brokers. So I find this property. I go, oh, and it says $18,000. Can you imagine that? $18,000 for a beachfront condo on Maui, and everybody. I'm going. You know, I used to play football. They call it trap play, where you come through the hole and somebody traps you. I'm going. I'm looking for the trap. You know, I know it's just too good to be true. And as I say, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. But that's not true. Every so often, a blind hog finds a truffle. You know what I mean? It's, wow. So here's this 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo, $18,000. The economy was so bad they couldn't get anybody to buy them. So the guy said, "I'll finance you." The seller, the developer. I said, "Yeah." So where am I going to get the down payment? Because my whole objective when I was taught in this class was how to buy real estate for nothing. That was the deal. He says, "You got a credit card?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "If you put 10% down on my MasterCard, $1,800 down payment. It was 100% financed, and I made $25 a month." And that was my education. I went, wow, I can now buy property for nothing. And we still do the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Still do the same thing today. But anyway, the mistake I made was I didn't look at the maintenance. You always miss something.
Yep.
So this great property, I think I'm now Donald Trump. You know, it's my little 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo on Maui for $18,000. I'm rich, and making $25 a month. And what I didn't see was that because the developer was in bankruptcy, he wasn't taking care of the place. And what happened? The septic system blew up, and I was downhill.
Then you blew up.
Yeah. Well, the septic rolled downhill, and it rolled into my little 1-bath condo. I was no longer Donald Trump. The asset now turned into a liability. It was literally shit. I mean, it smelled like shit. You know, I couldn't rent the apartment. Second lesson I learned on that one, learned the hard way, was the island of Maui. I lived in Honolulu. That means I had to climb in, take time off from work, drive to the airport, pay the parking fees, buy a ticket, fly to Maui, rent a car, drive to this little property on this beautiful oceanfront, you know, on Maui, where everybody wants to be, great beach, all of this, to go deal with a condo filled with sewage. And I'm going, I hate real estate. I never want to do it. I hate it. But that's when most people quit again. One setback, they quit. So today, my wife and I own about 5,000 units. But the whole thing here is it's not real estate. It's about you. It's your contacts. It's not real estate here. It's about you and all this. And the reason Kim and I invest in real estate is for tax, debt, asset protection. Right, Tom?
Well, that's right. And I think that, you know, I go back to your point about things being easy, and the poor people and the middle class, for the most part, quit when it gets difficult. And that's the reason that most people aren't successful in real estate.
Or life.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason that most people pay more taxes than they really need to pay, and that's because
then they complain.
They look at easy. If you want easy, you know, put money in a 401k. That's easy. Okay, any idiot can tell you to max out your 401k, and that's easy. All right, but that doesn't mean that's good. It just means it's easy. It's easy for them. It's easy for you. It's more difficult to invest in real estate. It's more difficult to go through the pain of the education. I've been through these. I'm currently dealing with a mudslide into a basement. Okay, so I've got 3 months of the renter not being able to use the basement. So, but that's what you do in real estate. But you know what? That's the education, and that's how you learn. And
I think grow up.
And you do. I mean, you learn a lot. And the thing is that if you get really good education up front, you make fewer of those mistakes down
Right.
the road.
And that's why my rich dad was so beneficial. He was my coach. He just said, okay, keep going. You know, when I told him about my condo now filled with sewage, he goes, okay, your education has begun. How are you going to handle it? But I didn't learn this in real estate school. You know? So I had to go hire a contract. I had to hire an attorney to fight the developer who was now in
Right.
bankruptcy. You know, I learned so much. You know, so it was an $18,000 that went into a $60,000 loss. It was great. So it was fantastic experience, but most people don't want to pay the price. So before we talk to you about tax advantages, you have to understand what the price is. Because today, like I said, Kim and I own thousands of units of real estate. How much tax do we pay?
Zero.
Zero. That's the price. Price is a good price, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the benefits. The question is the benefit worth the price you pay?
Yeah.
And you know, if you pay the price, you get the education, whether it's taxes, debt, real estate, whatever it is, then you get the benefit.
And that's why my rich dad was my coach. My rich dad said, lesson one, keep going. And if I had quit, like most losers do, they quit. You know, oh, real estate's bad, you know, and all this stuff. You're never going to get to where we're at here. So you're not doing it for the tax benefits, you're doing it for the education, which you learn all along the way. So before I go on to that tax and real estate, what do you think of the 401k as a tax advantage vehicle?
I think the 401k is like the worst thing you can ever do from a tax standpoint. Okay, and then the next worst thing would be the IRA, and the self-directed IRA. So maybe we just talk a little bit about
Yeah, sure.
real estate and IRAs real quick here, because this is like dumber than dumb. All right, this is what we hear all the time. We go, look, well, what if I have all this money in a 401k? So we're saying, you know, I mean, 401ks. The problem is that with the 401k is that you have no control over your money. You have no control over the tax consequences of your money. You don't have a lot of control over the investing. You don't have control over when you pull it out or how you pull it out. And in fact, the reality is you can't even pull it out until you leave the company. Okay? So let's say you've left the company. Let's say that you go, okay, well, now I'm going to take this. I'm going to roll it into a self-directed IRA because I've heard I can buy real estate in an IRA. Okay? Now, let's think about what the advantages of real estate. The advantages of real estate are primarily debt and taxes, right? So the advantages of real estate, debt and taxes, which we lose both advantages in an IRA. Here's what we all learned in third grade. -1 times -1 equals +1. Okay? So the way we look at this from a tax standpoint is, this is a tax shelter. Inside another tax shelter equals a tax expense. That's like putting real estate, which is a tax shelter, inside an IRA, which is a tax shelter, equals a tax expense. And that's what happens, because what you've done is, when you do real estate the right way, and you take advantage of the debt and the taxes, you should never pay tax on either your cash flow or your capital gain. Either one. You should never, ever pay tax on. Once you put it inside an IRA, now when you pull it out, first of all, you don't get the tax advantages while it's in the IRA. And second of all, when you pull it outside the IRA, you're going to pay a tax cost of upwards of 40%. So 0% versus 40% simply by putting it into an IRA.
Now, there's a lot of people recommending this, aren't there?
There's a lot. I mean, this is a very popular thing because there's so much money in IRAs right now. Okay, and so of course the real estate seller, you know, the one who's trying to dump the real estate, where are they going to go dump it? They want you to buy in the IRA. Well, here's the thing: the cost of pulling it out of your IRA is only 10%. That's the cost of pulling it out.
Wait, go back 1 second. See, there's a lot for most people have a lot of cash sitting here.
Right.
Right? And so they think, oh, good, I'll use this money to buy real estate.
Right, which is not bad per se, to use this money to buy real estate. The mistake they make is, well, I have to leave it inside my IRA to buy the real estate. Well, what they ought to be doing is pulling it out of their IRA, paying the penalty, and then buying the real estate.
So don't hold real estate inside an IRA.
Just don't hold it inside an IRA. I mean, it's taxes 101.
So why do people advise this? Putting money in. Why do they recommend putting in an IRA?
Well,
what do they call checkbook IRA? And all that stuff?
Yeah, it's a self-directed IRA or a checkbook IRA. This is why, because they're worried about 10%.
No, but why? How does somebody profits from doing this, right?
Well, yeah. All right. So here's how the deal typically works.
Somebody always is going to make money. So you don't know if they're recommending something. You got to ask the question: how are they making the money?
Here's how it's working. So let's say I'm selling the real estate. I'm the guy who's selling the real estate. Okay, and let's say I pay $20,000 for this property. Okay, I buy it in foreclosure, right? I've got a good deal on it, and then I fix it up and I sell it for $40,000. Okay, well, I'm willing to do just what your developer did. I mean, this is the same deal as your developer did. Okay, look, you give me $20,000 from your IRA, and then I'll lend you $20,000. Well, he's just lending the profit. Okay, so he takes back a note for $20,000. So we have a note plus cash from the IRA, and say, well, look, I'm leveraged inside my IRA. I'm good. I can buy $40,000 with $20,000. But what they're not telling you is, okay, so seems like a pretty good deal. I get $20,000 in my IRA. I get $40,000 worth of property, and this may be a perfectly good price. I'm not suggesting it's not.
That goes to the evaluations and appraisal, which is
Right.
part of the context.
Right. But let's say that I had this outside of an IRA. How much property could I buy? If I had $20,000 outside of an IRA, I could buy $100,000 of property because I can get an 80% loan to value all day long outside of an IRA.
So how does the developer make money here?
So the developer here, they're making money because they're selling more and more real estate.
They're going to they have a delta of 20,000.
That's right.
So let's say can make delta.
Yep.
They have the $20,000 because that's
Okay.
they mark the price up,
Right. There's the change.
and they're going to charge you 5% interest on that, right?
Of course, they're going to charge you 5%, 5 to 7% probably.
On this, so that's how the developer makes money. They're making money on money they just print.
Well, and here's what else. They're saying, well, look, if you leave the money in, I can sell you more real estate. Okay? Because if you took it out, you'd pay taxes on it right now instead of later. But now I can sell them more real estate. So the developer, they want to sell you more and more real estate, and they do that by convincing you to leave it in your IRA. But what they leave out,
I wasn't that silly because I didn't have an IRA. I bought it with a credit card.
what they leave out is that both taxes and the benefits from real estate, both the tax benefits and the financial benefits from real estate, all come from debt. Right? So you get more debt by pulling it outside your IRA, and you get more tax benefits from the debt when you pull it outside your IRA. So the tax benefits are absolutely phenomenal. We ran a little case.
Wait 1 second. If you don't understand this, don't worry about it. It took me a while to grasp it. That's why Tom says, you come to Rich Dad's Education. Tom
Right.
will talk about this more. Rich Dad's Coaching will help you through this more. But the point here is the education. It is your context. It's how you look at it. If you're just trying to buy real estate because you think you're going to make money, you're going to lose money, right?
Right.
That's it.
That's exactly right. So we did a little case study. So we took $100,000 inside an IRA versus $100,000 outside an IRA, pulling it out of the IRA. Okay. After 7 years, we used some very conservative numbers. We had about $600,000 of equity inside our IRA. Okay, that's after 7 years. And see, if that's all the developer's showing you, you're going, wow, that's great. I increased my return 600% in just 7 years.
Is that capital gains?
This is after tax, so it's all tax ordinary income. Yeah, it's capital gains and cash flow. There's some cash flow in there. But over here, the number is 5.4 million with the same assumptions after 7 years. That's the difference right there. You want a delta? There's your delta. And you don't have to take, don't take my word for it, run the numbers, but it doesn't matter. What happens is that the difference is about 9 times better to pull it outside of an IRA and leave it inside an IRA. And that's with paying taxes and penalties. So just remember that even just because it's easy doesn't make it good. Okay, I think of easy as a 4-letter word. Okay, and this isn't just a context shift. Get the education, and you can do a lot better.
So what I'm talking about is I was pretty good at math, but I was not really good at it. And taxes, I don't understand, and all this stuff. So that's why I have advisors like Tom, because I look at this thing, it still boggles my mind because I don't know what I'm doing. I make a lot of money, but I have good advisors. I think that's really one of the big things, is because I sit down with Tom, Kenny, and Garrett, and we discuss these things, and then I understand better because I'm using real life examples. So that's true.
Well, I think that's exactly true, and you do a better job of using your team than just about any client that I have. And seriously, this is so important because we were talking about earlier. This stuff's really easy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's numbers. It comes very easily to me. Okay, but you have you have other things that you're good at, and so what you do is you bring a team of advisors. This is part of what coaching education is about: is bringing a team of advisors that have all those different geniuses.
Right, and so the lesson here is this: don't listen to just one person.
Right.
Like I was talking to Tom, or I talked to you about that ranch I was looking at with Kim. The guy says it's worth $6 or $8 million. I'm going to let it for $3 million, and I look at that now. I just don't want the ranch because I'm not a rancher. It's nothing to do with the ranch. I'm not a rancher. I don't want to work it, so I'm out. But if I did want the ranch, and I was serious, at that point, Tom, Kenny, and Garrett would sit down and slap me around. Not slap, but say, "Have you thought about it? Have you thought about it?" And that's where education begins.
Exactly.
Is when I have a deal. At that point, I bring in a team. If you just take a class, even from us, Rich Dad Education or Rich Dad's Coaching, listen to one person, you're an idiot. I mean, you really do have to have your team of advisors. I don't call them experts, they're more like geniuses. I mean, Tom's a genius at tax. So that's why I said Tom's book is Tax-Free Wealth. I would recommend reading that. Even if you don't understand, then hand it over to your accountant, your CPA, and if they don't understand it, get a new CPA. I mean, really, that's what you need, because it's not about the real estate. It's the context that you come in. So I come at it with a team sport. Other people say, "Well, I bought a house." Our former partners, as you know. So I've done a lot of real estate. I said, "Really? What have you done?" I said, "My husband and I have owned 6 houses." I go, "Jesus, you're a moron." I mean, they actually think that's real estate. That's called a house. That's not real estate. So that's why what we're attempting to say to you is really not about tax or debt or asset protection. It's really about you. It's what is your education? How bad do you want to learn? Or are you just out there hoping to make some money? The guys who do that lose money. I mean, is that true?
I don't think there's any question. I mean, I even look at, you own what, 4,000 or 5,000 units, right? But they're all the same types of property. I mean, you've specialized in one area, you got really good at it, and that's why you're successful at it. I mean, if you were doing 15 different types of real estate, you wouldn't be successful at that either.
I'll just imagine this right now. Tom, let's role play. I found this ranch way up in the mountains, 20 miles from the nearest small town. It's got 7 large mansions on it. It's got a running stream. It's got pine trees. It's got a trout farm. It's got fish. It's got cattle. It's got horses. And, the guy he's asking 6 or 7, but he let me have it for 3. What do you think? Is that a good deal?
What I would say is I've got a bridge for you that's spanning Lake Havasu called the London Bridge. So you can buy that for me. It's just as good a deal for you. The problem, of course, is...
But he says the price is going to go up.
He may be right. But in the meantime, it's a huge liability.
See, and that's what happens to people. It's not the size, not the property, not the stock, it's not the real estate. It's the context, as the word talked about here. It's this here. It's not the content. It could be stocks, it could be real estate, it could be apartment houses, it could be raw land, and it could be a ranch. And that's the problem. People come there, it's capital gains, is price going up. The guy says it's $6 million, let you have it for 3 because you've already made 3. I said, I haven't made anything.
Yeah, and I would say, look, if he's willing to sell it to you for $3 million, then what's the value? $3 million. that is the value if that's what he's willing to sell it for.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is I'd say, well, look, if you want to become a rancher, great, let's become a rancher. But you're going to have to, you got to do this, this, and this to become a rancher. You're going to have these people on your team, et cetera, et cetera. Here are the risks involved and everything. And now you've got a whole new business. And you better be prepared for the amount of time and effort and losses that it takes from getting a whole new business.
Yeah, then he says, but look at the improvements. You have these 7, and they're nice homes, 7 luxury homes on the property. I'm going, they're going to go up in value too. I went, what? What? I can't even find this place. It's so remote. You know what I mean? And I'm going, but the average person will look at it and say, oh God. And so the guy selling it, you know, poor thing, as a couple, they said, well, we just need your money to invest in it. We'll run it for you. Go. Would you trust a couple who has no business experience to run a ranch?
Heavens no. And have no money?
Have no money.
Heavens no. There's a reason they have no money.
Yeah.
If it were that good of a deal, and they knew what they were doing, they'd find the money.
The money would find them.
Exactly.
But anyway, so that's really what I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with the content, nothing to do with the water, real estate, stocks, bonds, oil, gas, nothing. It's really about you. It's how you look at it, who your team is, how you evaluate it, what you look at it, how much experience do you have, how many times have you taken real estate courses, how many times have you taken different courses, are you dedicated to being a real estate investor? So the saying here is this, you know, is real estate a good investment? The answer is, are you a good real estate investor?
Right.
Do you have a good
That's
team?
exactly right.
Do you have a tax advisor? Do you have a property manager like Kenny who can look at it in a split second and tell you? Even I could tell from a property management size, those luxury homes are huge liabilities. Up there, log homes. Yeah. Upkeep on log homes is massive.
Enormous.
Bugs get in there. They're always cracking. They're always splitting. You have forest fires up there. You have to then hire this couple who are going to get fired because they can't sell the place, so they want me to give them money so they can operate the place. I said, have you ever operated a ranch? No. You know, I mean, that's really what real estate is about. Nothing to do with the ranch. Beautiful property, nice trees, nice stream, trout pond, lots of horses, lots of cows. But that's not a good real estate investment, right?
Well, the reality is, I mean, real estate's a business, just like any other business. And if you look at it as a business, then you're going to be successful. And the tax laws benefit business owners, and so that's why real estate gets the tax benefits.
So anyway, I just want you to understand, that's why I'm adamant about it, is that if you haven't taken real estate courses from Rich Dad's Education and have a coach from Rich Dad's Coaching, I would think twice about it. Because if you don't invest in education and a coach, you're going to lose the money anyway. Is that true?
No, I don't think there's any question. I think that anybody who casually invests in real estate gets the same the same consequences as somebody who casually invests in the stock market. They're pretty much going to lose their shirt at some point.
So with that said, let's go into some of the tax benefits. Now, I've done my best to scare you off and not go running out there and say, oh, I'm going to make millions in real estate, because people who say that always lose. Now, Tom will verify because he is my accountant. Did Kenny, Kim, and I make a lot of money during the crash of 2007?
Oh, a ton of money. Yeah.
And where did that money come from? It came from stupid investors, right?
Yeah, effectively. It came from 401ks.
Yeah. People who did not know what they were doing. So really, that really is a game. It's not winners and losers. It's about who's educated, who's stupid. You know, if you're stupid, get educated. Because if you're stupid, you're going to lose your money anyway. And really, people don't value the value of education or coaching. So really, that's kind of our message. And so now we can go into some of the benefits from taxes on real estate. That above the stock market, right?
Yeah, of course. And so the biggest benefit from real estate, which, by the way, you do not get in an IRA. Okay, and yes, I'm going to continue to hammer that one.
It's really a hot button with us because we've had some people inside our own organization who are telling people to put money, take your money from the IRA and then buy real estate with it, but keep it inside the IRA. We're not saying don't take your money from the IRA and buy real estate. We're just saying don't put real estate inside an IRA.
Right. That's all we're saying.
Yeah.
We're not saying don't use that money. That's where your money is. So if you're going to do real estate, once you get the education, don't do it until you get the education. At that point, then you can pull that money out, pay the taxes, pay the little bit of a penalty that there is, and then go invest in real estate, because there are huge benefits, starting with this one. which we call the magic of depreciation, right?
I love depreciation. It means I'm losing money.
Depreciation is so cool. So depreciation is simply a deduction for the cost of the property over a period of years.
But not your house.
All it is. Right. Only investment property, and not property you flip. By the way, you do not get to do not get depreciation on property you're flipping or developing. The reason is because that's inventory, and you don't get depreciation on inventory. Okay, and you don't get appreciation on personal assets either. Only on investment real estate, something you're going to hold for a long period of time, rent it out, or use it in a business. So, depreciation, the reason it's magic is because you're going to spend them. You're not expecting the property to go down in value. This is the only time when you've got property that's going up in value, and you get a deduction for it. And here's what's even better. Not only do you get a deduction, I want you to listen really carefully to this. Not only do you get a deduction of depreciation for the money you put into it, you also get a deduction for depreciation on the money the bank puts into the property.
In other words, you get to depreciate your bank's investment.
Yeah, exactly. So
that proves there's a God someplace. You know?
It's awesome. So let's say that you have $20,000, right? And then you borrow $80,000. This is your debt. So you buy a $100,000 property. See, in any other type of investment, I mean, even oil and gas, which we love oil and gas, you put in $20,000, you're only getting a tax benefit on the $20,000. Real estate's the one place where you're getting a tax benefit for the bank's money as well. So you get this benefit of on $100,000. So you might get a tax benefit as high as $10,000 a year. Okay, per year.
That means that they're taking $10,000 off of this.
Right, 10%. They're taking 10%. It's 10%. They're saying it's wear and tear because when you buy a piece of property, yeah, the land doesn't wear and tear, so we're not going to get a deduction for that. But you've got the building, you've got the contents, and you've got all the land improvements. And between them, the government says, well, there's a certain percentage for the building, there's a certain percentage for the contents, and a certain percentage for the land improvements. But on average, if you do it right and have the right education, you should get about 10% a year for the first 5 years. Well, that's $10,000 in a tax benefit. If you had $10,000 of cash flow, that would mean it would be tax-free. If you had $10,000 of cash flow from this property, then you got a $10,000 deduction. That means it's cash flow of $10,000, but it's tax-free because you got a $10,000 deduction.
And that's what Kim and I do.
Exactly.
What Kim and I do, and you just add more zeros, or you can take those zeros down, is what Kim and I is we take this, we take our income and we offset with depreciation.
Right. Not only that.
That's why it's zero.
If you're really good and you get the right tax advice, then your depreciation deduction is likely going to be higher than your cash flow. You need to use those tax benefits to offset your other income. That's what you guys do, is you'll take the depreciation and offset not only the cash flow from your real estate, but also offset the cash flow from your business. And that's the magic of depreciation. Now, there's a lot of education to get. I mean, there's some technical terms you're going to have to learn.
You don't do this at home.
Don't do this by yourself, okay? Chapter 7 of Tax-Free Wealth is all about the magic of depreciation. That's Chapter 7 of Tax-Free Wealth. And the reason we spend a whole chapter on it in the book is because it's magic. It's like, it's a free deduction. You're not actually losing the value, but you're getting the deduction.
So let's say I have $10,000 in income and $10,000 in depreciation. That's $10,000 tax-free income.
That's right. And that's why we say it's tax-free wealth.
Now, is this all over the world?
It is all over the world. It's not just in the U.S. Canada especially. They have very specific tax laws. You have to look at the tax laws of your country, but every country gives some kind of a tax benefit for business real estate.
And this is where Tom shifted my context on it. Why does the government do this?
Yeah, so the reason the government does this is because they want you to create housing. They want you to create office buildings. They want you to do development and produce more and more real estate so that people can have places to live and so that business have places to grow.
Because what happens is, without this, we'd be a communist country. And what I mean by that is that in communist countries we have no incentive. the government has to build the buildings.
Right.
They have to build the offices. They build the factories. If you've ever been to a communist country and went to communist country housing, it's as bad as government housing in the States. Anything the government touch is probably bad. So they want us to do it as capitalists, not the government.
Right, and what the government learned years and years ago, and this is, again, as Robert says, it's true all over the world, is that if the government gives you a little bit of an incentive to an investor to pay fewer taxes, they'll go do it. Okay, that's not a big incentive. I mean, at $10,000 a year, even at 40% tax rate, that's only a $4,000 a year benefit that the government gives up. But what they get is a $100,000 building being built. Okay, so that's a pretty good deal for the government.
Yeah, otherwise the government have to do it.
Right.
The other thing, what happens is, what's happening in the markets today is that because there's no quote-unquote good investments, I'm watching CNBC and Bloomberg, and they're saying, well, you've got to put your money in stocks because there's no returns out there. Put your money in the stock market because the PEs are this. And I'm going, you got to be crazy. I mean, there's no good investments. Well, even if the property doesn't go up in value, that's a good return.
Exactly.
So
That's still a 50% return, or actually it turns out to be about a 35% return, tax-free. 35% tax-free.
And they say in the stock market, they're getting like 4%. So you've got to put your money in the stock market because you're not getting any returns from bonds or savings. That's really stupid. But don't run to real estate because of this. But this is how I see it. I go, well, I like this a lot better. It's a higher return and more control. And if I know what I'm doing, this is almost guaranteed. It is guaranteed, this part of it.
Well, yeah, the tax benefit is absolutely guaranteed.
That's from the government.
And as long as you get the education, and this is what Rich Dad Coaching is all about, so that you can get educated, have somebody there who's done the real estate investing ahead of you and is there to hold your hand and walk you through that first investment. As long as you get that kind of education, then you're less likely to make all the mistakes that you and I've made without coaching.
So I know this may be a little bit confusing to you, but just trust me, that's where your education begins. You do it until it starts to make sense. It's like when I learned to walk, I had to stand up, fall down, stand up, fall down, stand up, fall down. If you just hope the instructor or your coach or whoever is telling you to do this, and you don't know how to do it, that's really silly. So learn this stuff. My point of here is this. If the person talking to you does not understand this, get a new advisor.
Yeah, there's no question.
If your instructor or your coach does not understand this, get a new coach, get a new instructor. Because I don't care if they're from my company. If a professional doesn't understand this is basic 101. I learned this, a little bit of it, but I didn't know much about it. I just kind of understood it. And I ran out to first find the real estate and then start learning about this. So my point here is this: you're only as good as your teacher, and you're only as good as how good you want to learn. But if you have bad instructors or bad advisors, or you listen to your brother-in-law who knows nothing, and you can't do this, and you can't do this here in Canada, you can't do this here in Denmark, you can't do this here in Australia, get another advisor, because Tom will tell you it can be done, right?
No question. I mean, it's kind of interesting when we hire. Just when we bring somebody in, one might bring them in from one of the biggest firms in the world and come work for us. They may have been there 10 years. It takes us 6 months just to retrain them. Because the question is not what I can or can't do. The question is how can I do it? And anytime you have an advisor, I mean, that's the thing that I love about all of the Rich Dad advisors, is it's not about what you can't do. It's always about how can I do it? And that's a complete shift in context. Because most accountants, especially accountants and lawyers, what are they known for? This is what you can't do. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Okay? But the reality is that you can do it if you change your facts. What we like to say is if you want to change your tax, you simply have to change your facts. Okay, well, it's not that difficult. One of the facts you can change is get debt on your real estate. Take it out of your IRA. I mean, those are facts you have to change to get the tax benefits. I mentioned earlier that not only do you not pay tax on your cash flow, you should never pay tax on your capital gains from real estate. Now, yes, we don't invest at Rich Dad for the capital gains, but you certainly hope you're going to get a capital gain.
Let me talk about capital gains, okay? What Tom is talking about this, when I talk to a lot of real estate salespeople, brokers, or stock brokers, they always say the price will go up. They have to do that because they want to bullshit you, they want to BS you into thinking that. The difference with us is we want to guarantee we have capital gains. And what we mean by that is this: when like Mike Sullivan, our CEO, he buys a business, he knows he can fix it.
Right.
So by fixing the business, it has capital gains and value goes up. When Ken McElroy buys a piece of property, he can fix it. Even though it's a piece of, you know what, he can fix it and the value goes up. So that's capital gains. What most people are investing for capital gains is called hold and pray. They hope the market's going to lift the thing up. We don't do that. I don't care if the real estate market is going up or down. I want to guarantee I have a capital gain. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, no question. I mean, what most people do is called speculation.
Yeah.
And they're speculators or gamblers, whereas
Dreamers.
Same with the stock market. I mean, when Andy Tanner invests in stock market, he's not investing, he's not hoping it goes up. I mean, he's actually got cash flow going on that. So it's the same type of thing. Doesn't matter what type of asset class. The education is, can you do something? It's like when we do oil and gas, the oil and gas investments that you and I both invest in, that's something where there's some control there. I mean, we're actually drilling the wells, making it go up in value.
Yeah, we're not just drilling holes. We know there's oil down, then we drill a hole.
Right.
It's a very big difference.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say that now we've got free cash flow. Let's say that you start like most people. Here's how most people start investing, right? They buy little greenhouses. I mean, that's pretty wise to start small.
Yeah, that's how I started. You know, Monopoly game, 4 greenhouses, then you buy a red hotel.
Right. So now let's say we want to go buy that. You know, let's say we get tired of those 4 greenhouses. So what we do is we trade them in on a couple of apartment houses or hotels or whatever. Well, the great thing in the U.S., Canada, and several other countries is that this can be tax-free. This is called a tax-free exchange. So you can sell these properties and buy this property without ever paying tax.
So let's say I make $1 million selling 4 properties.
Right.
That $1 million is now what?
Now that's tax-free, and I'm going to use that $1 million. Think about it, you made the $1 million. We're probably going to leverage that, get more debt, right, and buy bigger buildings.
But the $1 million is now tax-free.
It's all tax-free.
Can I do that in stocks?
Cannot do that in stocks. Let's say that you go through. Here's one of the things I hear all the time. Well, but at some point I'm going to get out of my real estate, and so then I'm going to have to pay tax. And I'm going, why? Why would you get out of the real estate? Because there are different types of real estate. When you did this because it was less risky, you were just starting out, you wanted some growth in your asset. You go into here, you get a little more growth, you get more cash flow. But then let's say you go, I want to retire and I just want a bond. Okay, well we do this. So then what you do is you go and exchange this for a Walgreens or some other big box company where what they do is they'll build their real estate, sell it to an investor, and lease it back for 30 years. That's just a bond.
Well, it's called a triple net, NNN.
Right.
Triple net lease here. So you give them $5 million.
Right.
And they pay you 10% of the $5 million, so it's $500,000 a year. Again, it's all tax-free.
Right, and you can exchange these apartment buildings or these hotels into this Walgreens, and now basically you have money coming into your bank account. You don't have to do anything.
For those who may not know what a Walgreens is, because it's a huge chain of drugstores.
Drugstores, right.
And we like drugstores because as healthcare goes up, Walgreens stays in business. So people say, well, you don't get much of a return on the Walgreens, but you get a lot of return on this here.
Right, we got returns all the way going up. Now's the time when, there comes a time when you're maybe at an age where you want just a bond. Well, you can go sell all your real estate, pay taxes, and buy a bond and get what, 2%? Right? Or you can be in Walgreens and get 6 or 7%.
It's really stupid, you guys. I mean, I don't know why anybody's in the stock market personally, or why they would get 2%, but not get any tax breaks. It doesn't make any sense to me. But you have to have financial education, so that's why I talked about this first before the content.
Exactly.
Context before content.
Right.
So this is what Kim and I did. We reached this point probably, it took us about 15 years to reach here.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened for Kim and I is we're here, and went into this, And now it's called triple net. What does triple net mean to people?
It's net of taxes, it's net of expenses,
And repairs.
and repairs, right?
Yeah.
So basically, all you have to pay is the mortgage. That's it. It's all you're paying is the mortgage.
And you don't even have to do that. Your bookkeeper does that for you.
Oh, right. I mean, this can all be done automatically. I mean, this is basically what I call mailbox money.
Yeah.
I mean, it just comes in the mailbox, goes out. It's no big deal. So you're traveling all the world. Well, here's the ultimate. All right, here's the ultimate tax planning. At some point, what's going to happen? You're going to die. Okay, that's what's going to happen. You're going to die. At the time you die, here's what happens. All of the taxes that are built up over the years because you took depreciation, they all go away when you die. All the taxes go away. So you never have to pay the capital gains. All these capital gains, yes, they're deferred. They're pushed forward, but at death, they go away. And since we're all going to die, we know as long as we hold that Walgreens, when we die, the taxes go away.
And there's other vehicles you can use on top of all this, but this is
It's just simple.
basic.
I mean, all I wanted to do was explain that it doesn't matter what type of real estate you invest in. You can go from one type to another, back again, okay?
Like, different types. You get houses. You could go to hotels.
Right.
You could go to big apartment houses.
You could go to a parking lot. You could go to land. You can
office buildings.
office buildings,
Retail.
right? Anything you want, and then at some point, that tax will go away because that's the way the tax law works in the U.S.
Is this all over the world too?
This is not all over the world, okay? Some countries do this. Some countries are even better. I mean, Germany has some phenomenal tax laws that get me going because they're so complex. The more complex, by the way, the more complex the country's tax laws, the more opportunities there are for tax breaks. Okay, that's a rule of thumb. More complex the tax laws, more opportunity for tax breaks. But this is something that's done in several countries, certainly in the U.S., and anybody who's investing in the U.S., and there are just so many opportunities to defer, and then eliminate your gain.
And even the States is even beyond this. You can keep going. So there's a lot of things you can do, but it starts with right here, with your education starting.
It does. I mean, it all starts. This is just a different context. That's all this is. Going from one to another, doing the tax-free exchange. That's all just a different context. The content's all the same. Everybody's got content. But to change your mindset and to think, well, gee, I never have to pay my tax. I can't tell you how many accountants I've heard say, well, don't do a tax-free exchange. It's too complicated. Eventually you're going to have to pay the tax. You're going to have recapture. All this baloney, when the reality is if you plan it properly, just like you have to plan a real estate acquisition, you have to plan your taxes. If you plan your taxes properly, you never have to pay taxes on your cash flow or your capital gains from your real estate.
And that was a big point here, is that when you talk to your accountant, if they're going to give you real estate advice, ask them how much real estate you own.
It's always a good idea.
If your accountant says, I own my house, look for another accountant, because they don't understand this. I've learned the hard way on that one. Before Tom was our accountant, I went to this big name firm, and I sat down, and the guys they call, this was in Phoenix, they call in their expert from New York to come and look at our portfolio, and the expert comes in, and he's got the trick tortoise hair glasses on, it's Mr. Gucci Poochie, you know. He says, I've evaluated your portfolio, you're too heavy on real estate. I said, you know what, we make $500,000 a year back then on real estate tax-free. No, you're too heavy on real estate. This is an accountant. I said, what I suggest you do, his glasses, he goes, I suggest you sell all your real estate and put it in mutual funds. And I thought the guy was kidding me. I thought, oh, it must be a joke. He must have read my book. No, this guy was dead serious. I asked him, how much real estate do you own? He says, nothing. How many mutual funds do you own? Lots. That was the difference. The guy liked mutual funds, so he's going to give me bad advice because he likes it. The guy was not a professional at what he does. He was a salesman for the mutual fund industry, right? I mean, he's a CPA also.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, sports fans, I hope I've given you some ideas. Real estate is great from the tax side, but it has nothing to do with real estate. It has to do with you. Final words, Tom.
Well, so final words is the rest of that story. So the rest of that story is we took over the next year.
That's right.
And and we went back and we did redid the depreciation on most of your properties, and the result was a $2 million refund. That's the rest of that story. So that's why, Robert talks so much about your advisors and having not just good advisors, but the right advisors. So you want to make sure if you're doing real estate, you want advisors who understand real estate. You don't want to, for example, you wouldn't want an asset protection attorney who doesn't understand real estate doing your asset protection. Okay, you wouldn't want a tax advisor who doesn't understand real estate doing your tax returns. Okay, you need to make sure that you've got the right people on your team who understand what is you're doing. If you're doing oil and gas, you better have team members who understand oil and gas. Real estate, business.
And the problem with most financial planners, I'm sure they're good people, but they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. I mean, all they do is take, what, a 3-week course or something?
So I actually got my Series 7 license once. And it's a tough test to take, but seriously, it took me less than a month to study for it, and that's the highest level they go is the Series 7. I mean, I could have been a broker, with that license, and I'm going. And at that point, I knew nothing. I'd taken a 1-day exam after a few weeks of study, so it's not that challenging.
It takes you about a year to get a massage therapist license. It takes you a couple of months to become a financial planner. I mean, I'd rather have a massage therapist. They're more professionals, you know what I mean? So anyway, sports fans, really that's what this whole Rich Dad is about, Rich Dad's coaching, Rich Dad's education, is you've got to do your part too. If you don't want to get educated, then a 401k will do and a financial planner will do. The trouble with that is you'll work harder, pay more in taxes, and earn less. That's the choice. So thank you, Tom, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.